Could it be? With me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to NFL free agency here on the Louie T Network. Of course, I'm your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Happy New Year! New league year is upon us, and free agency pretty much started yesterday with all the tampering that was going on during the NFL's tampering period. And technically speaking, teams aren't supposed to announce deals, but they're not listening to that. And we got a lot of deals out of the way yesterday, but we'll revisit a lot of them as they were made official today for the most part. A few more deals were consummated today. Also, some more players were released. So as the market is starting to dry up, there's also an influx of more players hitting the market. So again, if you're a team that hasn't spent a ton of money already and is kind of waiting for the market to settle, more players are going to hit the market. So do not panic if your team hasn't forked over a boatload of cash to get their hands on some of these top of the market free agents. They're going to cost you when you go top of the market. You want to wait, get some of the clearance items. You got to settle and wait for the market to correct itself, and then those guys will become available, and you'll be able to get what we term clearance items, bargain basement deals with players that are kind of off the radar. So we'll get into some of the bigger topics today. I'll get to some comments, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start moderating my own comment section now. Since you guys say I'm too slow with these comments, we'll skim through them. So let's get to the proceedings this evening and start with the comments. And so what's good with y'all? Thanks for joining me tonight. Again, if this is your first time here, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. If you want to skip the line, want to have your comment read, hit your man with a super chat, or you can go to Twitter @InTheLabRoom, use the hashtag LouieTLive, and I'll read your comment from there as well. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Like the video, share the video. If you want to enter into the March Madness bracket, the link is in the discussion, or you can go to the website LouieTNetwork.net and go and click on the March Madness logo, and it'll take you straight to the bracket in the merch and more section of the site. So March Madness starts tomorrow. So if you want to join and have a chance to have your team be up first in the draft wrap-up series, go ahead, enter in, see if you can't win and get it done. I came in 4th last year. Not proud of that. Looking to be a lot better this year. That being said, let's talk about what took place today and talk about free agency and the new league year. Let's get to your comments. And John Saluter says, any chance of our Redskins getting the Honey Badger? I think there's a really good chance of the Redskins being interested. The question is there mutual interest? Obviously, the Redskins would be silly not to be interested in a guy that I think could solve one of their issues, which is the slot. Remember, they had Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie in the building for a large part of yesterday. Did not leave with the deal. They took him out to dinner, and nothing has been really said about that situation. He's supposed to have another meeting with the Saints, so I don't know if he's going to sign or not, but they need a guy to come in the slot after the Kendall Fuller trade to Kansas City for Alex Smith. They need someone to man up the slot, and he'd be a great addition to the football team. Again, does he want to be a Washington Redskin? Are the Redskins interested in him? Is there a mutual interest? And then you got to talk dollars and cents. Again, if the dollars don't make sense to Bruce Allen, it's not going to go down. Reese says, can you lend me some of your sage wisdom? What do you know about Tampa Bay Buccaneer defensive tackle Mitch Unrein? All Mitch Unrein is good for is stopping the run. If you're looking for a guy that's going to come in and help you stop the run, Mitch Unrein is your guy. Not going to give you any pass rush, not going to do anything extra. He's just going to take on blockers and eat up space. That's pretty much what you're going to get out of Mitch Unrein. Mazer_12 says, let's see. I find it funny how a decent chunk of Texans fans hate the moves that has been made. He said he's getting good players instead of throwing a lot of money at just one player, you're not going to satisfy everyone in the fan base. The Texans have made a number of moves, most notably, obviously, Aaron Colvin, but they've also done some other things. I don't have the exact list in front of me, but I can rectify that. Let me open up my notes and see if I have anything other than the Colvin move. I know they did do some other things today. In any event, it's not always about spending. I know they also signed Centrell Henderson yesterday, and if I'm not mistaken, they signed, I believe they signed, they re-signed their receiver Bruce Ellington. I do know they did that. I may be missing one, but in any event, there's nothing wrong with keeping your own, and nothing wrong with being very cautious with the way you spend your money. Again, the Texans have been very foolish and frivolous with the way they've done things in the past, a la Brock Osweiler. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is more. More Enrique Valencia hate for the Colts organization. You gotta love it. BA says, should the Skins bring back Keenan Robinson? No, they should not. Jeremy Valdez says, what do you think of Weston Richburg to the 49ers? I talked about it yesterday. Love the move. Think it's an excellent move by the 49ers to bring in a guy that I think fits Kyle Shanahan's system to a T. They love the stretch zone run blocking scheme. Kyle Shanahan and his dad are masters at running the football. They're going to run the football and get play action fake off of it. Weston Richburg is one of the better pass protecting offensive linemen in the league in terms of the center position, but I also think he's more athletically gifted than people give him credit for, which is a staple of a center in a Kyle Shanahan offensive scheme. I've talked about the centers in the past, like a Corey Lichtensteiger, undersized but athletic and could get to the second level, could get to the reach block. You look at a center like Alex Mack in Atlanta, a guy that was athletically gifted, that could get to the reach block, get to the second level. That's what you have to be able to do in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I think that Weston Richburg can do that, can get out on the screens. Again, a guy that is a little bit more nimble than people give him credit for, and is going to be a really good addition. They paid him a boatload of money, didn't see that kind of contract coming, but nonetheless, I feel like it's a really good move for the San Francisco 49ers. People always overlook the center position. We talk tackles all the time, but the center, to me, after left tackle, and you could argue right tackle as well now in this day and age with teams flipping over their best pass rusher to both sides of the field and moving guys around. After the two tackle positions, the center position is the biggest on the offensive line, and so this is a way to shore up your offensive line if you're the San Francisco 49ers. I love the move. Reese says, Chandler Catanzaro is a new buck too. Think he's a solid kicker. Will add some stability until we find someone else. Yeah, he's solid. It's a lot better than what you did at the position the last 2 seasons. So that I think will really help. John Saluter, Redskins aren't going to get Jordy Nelson. He's in Oakland today, I believe, and he's got a ton of meetings lined up. I don't think the Redskins are that interested in Jordy Nelson, especially after they spent money on Paul Richardson yesterday. No way that the Redskins are interested in Jordy Nelson. Jeff P. says, you see the money on the Giants gave Solder. He's not even close to on the same level as Trent. I did see the money he got. Again, it's not about, the same thing can be said about the Kirk Cousins contract. It's not about what level the player is playing at. I've said this before. It's who's next. Are you up? Is it your turn to get paid? If it's your turn, you're the next highest paid player. And so that's what it was going to take. If the Giants didn't pony up, guess what? He would have moved on to the Texans, and they would have gave him what he was looking for. If they didn't pony up, he would have moved on to the next team, and they would have gave him what he was looking for. Someone was going to pay Nate Solder the deal that he got from the Giants. The Giants said, why not have it be us? We've got the money. We need someone at that position because it doesn't matter who we draft, who's at quarterback, whether it's Eli, Rosen, Darnold, doesn't matter. Whomever's at quarterback, they're going to get their brains bashed in if we don't find a left tackle, an adequate one that can protect their blind side. It was a necessity. And again, sometimes the necessary evil is something that has to occur. Yes, that was a lot of money. And no, Nate Solder is not worth that kind of money. But again, that's what the market dictates. And a player is only worth what someone is willing to pay him. And look, Nate Solder is worth that kind of money because the Giants were desperate enough to have to pay him 4 years, $62 million. Let's keep it moving. All right. So, John Perez asks about Ndamukong Suh and where he ends up. And who knows where he's going to end up. There are so many teams that are going to probably get in on the Suh sweepstakes. Obviously, how much does he love football? The guy's made a ton of money over the life of his career. So, you've got to question that. But at the end of the day, he's still a productive football player. I know a lot of people like to come down hard on Suh. Maybe he didn't live up to the contract in Miami, but he was still a very forceful player along that defensive line. And when he's engaged mentally, when he is feeling good and wants to play football, he's among the best still at the defensive tackle position in this league and the most disruptive. So you've got the Patriots who are interested. You've got the Eagles who they've been signing up everybody. Why stop now? You've got a ton of teams, the Buccaneers, the Raiders. All of these teams are going to be interested. Again, it's going to probably end up being a team that at this point of his career, he should value winning. Okay, that should be probably the number one priority because he's made a ton of money. But again, I'm not in the mind of Ndamukong Suh. So again, I don't know how much money factors into his decision. How much does winning factor into his decision? Does money trump all? Because if that's the case, then you go somewhere where they're offering the most dollars. If you're thinking about winning, maybe New England is where he'll end up. Maybe Philadelphia is where he'll end up. Who knows? We'll see. But Suh is a guy that will gain and garner, I should say, a ton of interest. Mason Sykes says, what do you think Tyrann Mathieu ends up? Hard to say. Hard to say right now. I think he's really hurt because that situation didn't work out in Arizona. But we'll see what happens. He's going to start lining up some different interviews and stops. And he's going to land somewhere quickly, that's for sure. Anwar Muhammad says, what do you think about Eric Ebron going to the Ravens? So Easy any target, any guy with two hands that plays an offensive position, the Ravens should be interested in. If you've got two hands and they work and they can catch, the Ravens should be interested. So what do I think about that move? It would be a tremendous move. It would upgrade the tight end position, give Flacco another pass catcher, which he desperately needs. They've gotten two guys already in John Brown and Ryan Grant. They need many more pass catchers. And it doesn't matter what position they play. Receiver, tight end, running back. It doesn't matter. If someone is out there and they can catch, they should be on the radar of the Baltimore Ravens. And you saw what Ebron did in the snaps that he got in Detroit. He was a factor in the pass game. So he can make plays. You give him opportunities, he can separate and catch the football, and the Ravens could definitely use that kind of player in their locker room and on the football field. Michael Sachs Jr. says, what do you think about my Saints signing a linebacker and a slot corner? So you get Patrick Robinson back in the mix in New Orleans with the Saints. Not sure about the linebacker that you signed, but I do know about the Patrick Robinson signing. He's coming back to New Orleans, And so on a 4-year deal, had the best year of his career with the Eagles last year. We'll see if he can build on the momentum gained from last year's success and bring that to New Orleans. So I think it's a good move. Anytime you can improve your football team, especially at a specific position like the slot, which is a big-time position in this league now, with the corners that the Saints have, especially Marshawn Lattimore and some of the playmakers that you have on that defense, you add a guy like Patrick Robinson in to kind of stabilize that slot, and now you're that much better on the defensive side of the football. Let's see. House, I am using a BRIO, Logitech BRIO webcam. It's down in the description. The link is down in the description. If you're going to make a purchase, it doesn't have to be for a webcam, but any purchase, and you're doing it through Amazon, use one of the links down in the description below and help your man Louie T out. So, Jeff P says, reading between the lines, does the fact that we haven't gone for a back yet in free agency mean we're more than likely taking one high in the draft? I hope that's what it means. Again, Doug Williams said that we were going to address the position. I take Doug at his word. So I'm assuming that we're going back, and I'm hoping that it's in the second round, and I hope they get rid of that need early and move on with the rest of the draft. David Johnson says, I'm not sold on the Texans free agent signings up to this point. Other than Aaron Colvin, most of the guys are stopgaps. What are your thoughts? Again, with the Texans, there isn't a ton of money to be had. Again, you've got money tied up in the cornerback position. You've got money tied up along your defensive front with a bunch of guys that can get after the quarterback. You're going to have to pay Clowney soon if you have any intentions on keeping him. There isn't a lot of money to be shared around. So I'm not mad at the Texans for kind of being a little cautious. Again, you've made some mistakes in the past. I know it's a new general manager. I know it's a new regime still. You've got some decisions to make, and I think the smart thing to do is to tread lightly if you're the Texans. And I love the Colvin move. And what you've got to remember, too, if you're the Texans, you've got a lot of guys coming back from injury. It's a talented football team. You get Watt back. You got Clowney still. You get Merciless back. And all of a sudden, that defense is roaring. You've got a number of guys out there. Colvin, you add to the mix at the cornerback position. Again, I still worry about your secondary getting a little long in the tooth. Obviously, Kareem Jackson still got good football left in him. How much football, good football, is left in Jonathan Joseph? But again, this is a really good Texans defense, and you add Colvin to the mix. I'm not disappointed, and I think they've done more than enough thus far. Moving right along. Good question by Mind Draws. He says, after these 2 days, is there a position that can best be addressed in the draft rather than free agency? Obviously, the positions that have dried up: quarterback, wide receiver, which it's not a deep wide receiver. It wasn't a deep wide receiver pool to begin with, and everybody picked off the top of the crop. And so now you need to go in the draft, and that's not a great draft for receivers. So if you're looking for a receiver, you need to get them early if you're looking for a really good to elite receiver in the 2018 NFL draft. So those are positions. Obviously, running back, it's a deep running back draft class. I'm not huge on getting older running backs. The Lions seem to be hell-bent on getting themselves a veteran running back, whether it's Frank Gore, who I'm hearing that they're nearing a deal with, or DeMarco Murray. They seem hell-bent on getting a 30 or over back this offseason, and so we'll see what the Lions decide to do. I still think they're going to end up drafting a back as well, but in any event, to me, back is definitely something you want to go into the draft for, along with receiver and now quarterback. And free agency, I think you probably at this point, after the cornerback market has been ravaged, you probably need to go in the draft for a cornerback as well. There's still some really good safeties on the market. I think that's one of the positions that really hasn't been touched yet. And now adding Tyrann Mathieu to that mix, Eric Reed is still out there. Morgan Burnett is still out there. There are a ton of really good quality NFL starting safeties available. So I'd say that that's one of the positions that really hasn't been touched quite yet. All right. Anwar Muhammad says, do you think Sammy Watkins got overpaid, or is that just how the market is? It's just the market, man. I mean, again, like I said earlier with Nate Solder, if Samuel Watkins didn't get that money from Kansas City, I could bet you your best, I would bet you any amount of money, there are 3 other teams lined up ready to pay him the same deal. We could sit here and talk about how he was overpaid for, but again, the market is changing. The salary cap went up another $10 million from 66 to 176 million this season. Everything is changing in this league. Contracts are bigger, and again, Sammy Watkins is a very talented football player. Don't get it twisted, and he's young, and I think the best football for him is yet to come. So was it an overpayment? Maybe, but I don't think it was. $16 million for a starting receiver in this league is right around the going rate. Check the franchise tag for a receiver. How much is that? Right around 16, 17 million, right? So you're right in that neighborhood of how much it costs and what the going rate is for an NFL starting receiver. Allen Robinson would have got similar money, and he pretty much did. Like I said, $2 million less per. He would have gotten similar money to, if not more, if he wasn't coming off of an ACL. So again, I don't think he was overpaid. That's really just the market at this point. Here, Kitty asks what to do with the 13th pick for the Redskins. Look, best player available. Honestly speaking, best player available. If that's a safety, if that's Derwin James, take him. If that's a defensive lineman, Vita Vea. If that's Daron Payne, you take him. Best player available is what you do at 13. Reese says, what can you tell me about Ryan Jensen? He's on the Bucs radar. I've done some research, and I heard he's a great center. Great is a strong word. He's a good center. He's not great. He's solid. He's a guy that he's a bigger, I won't say he's too big. He's a solid size center. He's got limited movement skills. He's not the best athlete in the world. He's solid at pass protection. Not as good in the run game. Well, I take that back. He's good in the run game. Not as effective. And when you ask him to move, if you're asking him to generate movement in the run game, he can do that. He fights like hell in the run game. He's solid. Okay, don't go all crazy about Ryan Jensen. Will he upgrade your football team? Maybe. Again, he's a guy that I'm lukewarm on. But again, in a market where there aren't many quality offensive linemen available, he's probably going to get paid. Slip Ammo says, you may have answered this, but what quarterback do you think Buffalo will grab? Well, they already grabbed a quarterback. Buffalo signed A.J. McCarron, 2 years, $10 million, with incentives that could boost that deal up to $16.5 million. So they went out. Now, we were talking yesterday, Buffalo pregame kept asking, what are the Bills doing? Everyone's went out and got a quarterback except us. We need to address the position. Voila, there you go. The game of musical chairs at the quarterback position is complete. Every team needing a quarterback has a quarterback, at least one veteran quarterback on their roster now. And so every quarterback that was out there to be had has a home now as A.J. McCarron, now a Buffalo Bill, 2 years, $10 million with incentives, potentially boosting it to $16.5 million. Still think the Bills are in prime position to draft a quarterback. However, I do not take this as a situation where they are absolutely done at the quarterback position. Cloud says, I hope these teams near the end of the draft sign all veteran running backs so guys can drop to us. It's not happening. Even if teams sign veteran backs, like the Lions, for instance, Even if they sign a veteran back, which it seems like they're hell-bent on doing, doesn't mean that they're going to pass up the opportunity to select Darius Geis with the 20 whatever pick or the 19th pick or wherever the Lions are selecting in this draft. Same could be said for other teams around the league. Again, it could be only one back taken in the first round. I think it's going to be two. Obviously, Barkley is going to be the first off the board, and I think when it's all said and done, Geis is going to come off the board in the first round, and maybe he does fall to you at 32. Maybe he is there. I don't think it will be the case, but stranger things have happened. Mondraw says, Allen Robinson is a steal compared to how much Watkins and Grant got, though. Again, coming off the injury, it's why they got a little bit of a discount, but we'll see. Again, it's only an overpayment if the guy doesn't go out and ball. 3 years from now, when we look at Ryan Grant's deal, if he's balling for the Ravens, and just, I want you to think about it this way. Last year, the Rams signed the ex-Bill receiver from USC, Robert Woods. All right, he got like a 4-year deal that was right around like $27 million. So like $6.5 to $8 million per year. Did a lot of you think Robert Woods was worth that kind of money? Maybe, maybe not. But Ryan Grant, the next year with the cap going up, is making $7.25 million a year. I mean, I think Ryan Grant's a really solid player. I think you guys are underselling what he can bring to the table. I didn't hear anybody complaining about Albert Wilson getting a 3-year, $24 million deal, $8 million per. What has Albert Wilson done in this league? Again, it's all about perspective. It's all about who determines and deems a deal to be too expensive. Again, a guy is only worth what someone is willing to pay. And if Ryan Grant, if Sammy Watkins, if whomever is able to get a deal because some team is willing to give it to him, hats off to him. And like I said, today's overpayment is tomorrow's deal. You overpay today because in 2 years, that deal is going to look like chump change. When the salary cap goes up another $20 million over the next 2 years. And that deal you gave 2 years ago now looks like a chump change deal. And it's like the 30th highest paid receiver in the league because so many people have leapfrogged that guy. Again, it's not that big of a deal. Dominic Garland says, thoughts on Spencer Long. I think he's a really good football player. Could play guard or center. Right now, he views himself as a center, but he can play guard. I honestly think guard is his best position, but in any event, he's rock solid as a pass protector. He's solid in the run game. Not going to move anybody in the run game, okay? But he's really solid. He's got solid movement skills. His best attribute is his ability to pass protect. I think he's going to help someone. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be the Washington Redskins moving forward. Let's get to some more comments. KT the Southern Gent says, what receivers are left in free agency? So we went over this exercise yesterday, KT. I think you were the same one that asked me about the receivers. So we've done this already, but I'll do it for you one last time. So we'll go through the list of notable free agents. There's not much left here, okay? We talked about this yesterday. Jarvis Landry, gone. Sammy Watkins, gone. Robinson, gone. Richardson, gone. John Brown, gone. Marquise Lee, gone. Danny Amendola, gone. Taylor Gabriel, gone. Dante Moncrief, gone. Jordan Matthews, still available. Probably your best option at the receiver position at this point. Obviously, Jordy Nelson is at the top after being released by the Green Bay Packers. After him, I think it's Jordan Matthews. Albert Wilson, gone. Mike Wallace is still available. If you want to mess around with 60 minutes, it's probably more like 120 minutes now. Be my guest. He's 31 years old. He's a one-trick pony, and that one trick is starting to slow down. Terrell Pryor, some people love him, some people don't. he's a guy that has #1 wide receiver talent, but again, he's raw at the position. And are you willing to take a risk on a guy that last year pretty much lost confidence at the wide receiving position? Go ahead, take a flyer out on him. Don't pay him a ton of money. See what he's about, and then if he performs, maybe you pay him next year. He's available. Eric Decker, I still think he can help someone. If you're interested in Jordy Nelson, then you should still be interested in Eric Decker as well, because Decker can still play football. And Jerron Brown, a guy that I think is very underrated out of Arizona, he's a guy that is a free agent as well. So that is really the extent of the receiver position. Keep in mind that Des Bryant still may be released at some point. Michael Crabtree, if Jordy Nelson is signed in Oakland, will become available, they will release him. So keep an eye out on that. Brandon Marshall may be a cut, and if he gets cut, I think he's going to go ahead and retire. But in any event, Emmanuel Sanders, it's not done in Denver as to whether he'll be back or not. I think they want both of their receivers back. We'll see what happens. But Jeremy Maclin was released. You can add him to the list. Jeremy Maclin seems to be on the tail end of his career. He can't stay healthy. He's not the guy that he was, say, 3 years ago. So I don't know if Maclin is a guy that anybody's interested in, but that's how the wide receiver position looks right now. Stephen Hills says, what are your thoughts on the Patriots losing Soldier now? They already lost Butler and Lewis. Now they're going to have to draft the left tackle high. UCLA Colton Miller is my guess right now. Colton Miller looks a lot like Nate Solder. Straight up and down, a long frame, doesn't move. It's funny because Colton Miller is actually, if you look at his body type, he's actually got a really good body type, and he actually moves a lot better, but he's not the biggest guy in the world in terms of his girth. So I'm interested to see where Colton Miller lands in this draft. But again, this isn't the best tackle draft in the world. So tackles, once they start going, it's going to be a run on tackles. I think you're going to have to wait to see the first tackle come off the board. Probably won't happen until the teens. But once that first tackle comes off the board, expect a run on tackles. The Patriots may have to grab theirs sooner rather than later. That pro gamer says, what do you think about the Jets in free agency so far? I think the Jets have been one of the most aggressive and one of the most impressive teams in free agency. I love Mike McCagnon. I love Todd Bowles. I love the fact that they both got extensions in the offseason. They well-deserved, I might add. Early on, it seemed like the Jets, we knew they weren't going to get Kirk Cousins, and I wanted to see how they rebounded after not getting the big prize of free agency. And so quickly they said, all right, we don't have time to sulk and cry over spilt milk. Let's hurry up and move on the quarterback position. So what do? They go and they re-sign Josh McCown, who had a career year for them last year, to a one-year deal. And I don't think that was with the intention of starting him. You bring in Teddy Bridgewater also on a one-year deal. I think that's a really good move there. And I still think you're in a position to draft a quarterback. So I like what they did at the quarterback position. Then, to me, one of the best and most underrated signings of the entire free agency period, they went out and got Isaiah Crowell, who I think is the best, who was the best free agent running back available this year, the youngest, a really good back. I think he has everything you're looking for. Underrated speed, good quickness, good vision, strong, powerful runner, runs through arm tackles. Love what he brings to the table. And again, the youngest back available with the skill set that he had. I thought that he was the best available, and they went out and got him. And then you turn around and you get one of the biggest fish in free agency at the cornerback position in Tremaine Johnson. Love that move to bolster the secondary. They did a lot of good things, have the Jets thus far. I'm really excited to see what this team is capable of, because I think I went into last year thinking the Jets were one of the worst teams from a talent standpoint, and as the season progressed, they won me over. Todd Bowles coached the hell out of that football team. I thought the receivers really stepped up. One of the most underrated trades last season was the trade straight up for Sheldon Richardson for Jermaine Kearse. He was a baller for them last year, along with Robbie Anderson. Hopefully he gets his head straight off the field doing some nonsense. Need him to straighten up. But he was an outstanding receiver for them last year. They had a nice 1-2 punch there. I thought ASJ did some good things at the tight end position. I'd like to see them address the tight end position, whether it be through the draft or in free agency. I don't care. I just want to see them get better at the tight end position. But they've done some really good things, have the Jets. Been really impressed with them thus far. HTTR Chris says, as you mentioned, most of the QB needy teams found a vet. Do you think this drops the rookie quarterback's draft stock, or will there be a run on quarterbacks in the top 10 picks like last year? Quarterbacks are always going to be taken early and often. Nothing has changed because teams have grabbed veteran quarterbacks. Maybe one or two teams that were going to select a quarterback may have second thoughts, but are the Broncos, again, I'm still waiting on the details of the Case Keenum deal in Denver, because, again, that's going to tell me how sold they are on Case Keenum. If it's a short deal, then they still are in the market for a quarterback. If it's a long-term deal, maybe they are not as high on some of these quarterbacks and want to bypass that position altogether. So that's going to tell me a lot. But you can't tell me the Browns aren't still interested in a quarterback because they went out and got Tyrod Taylor. You can't tell me that the Buffalo Bills aren't interested in a quarterback because they went out and got A.J. McCarron. You can't tell me the Arizona Cardinals aren't interested in a quarterback because they signed Sam Bradford, who can't stay healthy to save his life, to a one-year, $20 million deal. You got to be kidding me. These quarterbacks are going to fly off the board. The Giants are still in a position to take a quarterback despite having Eli Manning on their roster. These quarterbacks are going to fly off the board. Who knows what the Colts are thinking with Andrew Luck? Again, I still think that we're going to see 3 or 4 go in the top 10 when it's all said and done. Jerafel Design says, what is your take on DeMario Davis to the Saints? The guy offers you something that the Saints have longed for at the linebacker position, and that's pure unadulterated speed, which is why they had drafted Stephon Anthony. They thought he was going to be a speed demon and a supremely gifted athlete at the middle linebacker position. They were wrong. It didn't work out there, and so this guy comes in and he can run. He's good in pass coverage, little light in the run game, but again, he can run. And you've got some thumpers. If you don't want this guy in on first and second down, or you want to sub in, you got Manti Te'o, you've got Klein, you've got guys that can stop the run. You need guys that can run and cover in the passing game, and that's what DeMario Davis is going to bring to the table for the Saints. Let's keep it moving. Stephen Hill says, are the Jets likely to take a shot at Tyrann Mathieu since he is with Todd Bowles' daughter? I don't know if that's going to play any part in what he decides to do. You got to remember, Bowles coached him in Arizona. I think it would have more to do with that than the fact that he's with Todd Bowles' daughter, if that is in fact the case. The bottom line is he's a damn good football player. You know, the Jets drafted a ton of safeties. I don't know if that's a good fit for them. Remember, they just spent a first and second round pick on 2 safeties a year ago, and both played really well last year. I don't assume that that's a place he'd be looking to go. Anwar Muhammad says best middle linebacker options of free agency to pair with C.J. Mosley. So let's go through the linebacker position and see what's still available. So looking at the linebackers, Nigel Bradham, gone. The Eagles signed him up today, re-signed him. Tahir Whitehead is still available. Avery Williamson, gone. The Jets also signed Avery Williamson, another deal that I like for the Jets. A guy that, again, really good in pass coverage, one of the better pass coveraging linebackers in the league. And again, another guy that I think at 26 years old, still going into the prime of his career. Navarro Bowman, still available, but I still think he's likely to go back to Oakland, but we'll see what happens there. Zach Brown is an intriguing name. Redskins haven't re-signed him yet. If you're looking for a guy to pair next to C.J. Mosley, Zach Brown would be the best available of this group that is left. Paul Posluszny, he hung it up in Jacksonville. He's done. Todd Davis re-signed with the Denver Broncos. He was a young option. He's off the board. Anthony Hitchens, also a young option, gone to the Chiefs. Preston Brown, he's young, but he's not as talented as Zach Brown. So Zach Brown right now, your best option. Carlos Dansby, the ageless wonder, is still available. Kevin Pierre-Louis, I think he's back with the Chiefs if I'm not mistaken. John Bostic, not very impressive out of Indy. Josh Bynes, Will Compton. You can speak to Josh Bynes. Will Compton, again, to me, a backup linebacker. Christian Jones, if I'm not mistaken, he signed with the, I think he signed today or yesterday with the Lions. So I think he's off the board. And Devon Kennard, He's solid, but again, Zach Brown's your best option if you're looking for a guy to come in and help C.J. Mosley in the at the linebacker position. Reed says, do you think Alex Okafor would be a good move for the Bucks? He'd be solid. He was playing really well for the Saints last year before he tore his ACL. So I'd be interested to see how he responds coming off of the ACL surgery. Clean Senpai says, I really hope the Panthers are thinking about getting Tyrann Mathieu, but I don't know if we had the cap, but I didn't think we had the cap to sign Breland either, so who knows. But you got a deal on Bashaud Breeland. I think there are going to be a ton of bidders, and again, I don't see Tyrann Mathieu giving up any deals this time around. Breeland wanted to come home, and that's why you got Bree on such a cheap deal. That's the only reason you probably got him. And if he was looking to maximize his market, he could have got 12 or 13 million a year. But he decided not to. So you benefited from that. I don't see Tyrann Mathieu being in your ballpark. With all the teams that will probably be bidding on his services, you'd be better served going elsewhere looking for a safety. And we had this discussion yesterday. I think a guy that would fit your scheme really well is Morgan Burnett. And I don't think he would cost you as much as some of these other top-notch, top-of-the-market safeties either. KC3182 says, too many running backs for the Chiefs at the moment. Chiefs release Spencer Ware. Do you think he's a good pickup for your Redskins? No, I'm good. I'm going to pass. Again, I don't want anybody's stuff at the running back position. I want young, fresh legs out of the draft. So that's how that situation, for me, would be resolved if I were picking a running back for the Redskins. Jason Field says, Giants fan, what do they need in order to get better? Also sad Joe Thomas wasted his career, Hall of Famer. It wasn't a wasted career. The man played 11 strong years, 10 Pro Bowls, a lot of those all-pro seasons, surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm pretty sure he would say he didn't waste his time. But again, you can't pick where you end up. And when a team drafts you, you want to see the organization turn it around. I don't know if you guys remember the safety in Arizona that was really good for a long time. I can't think of his name. I know if there's an Arizona Cardinals fan out there, you will be able to tell me what his name is. Now, you know who I'm talking about, Wilson. His name is Adrian Wilson. He was so good for such a long time. The Cardinals were so bad. And then at the very end of his career, the Cardinals got good, and it sucked because he wasn't able to see some of the fruits of his labor come to fruition. He was there at the tail end of when they got good with, Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald when they made that run to the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that was right at the tail end of his career, being a really good safety in the league. But nonetheless, it happens, is what I'm trying to say. But the Giants, they need to improve the offensive line. They lost Weston Richburg, and I know people are going to, Giants fans, they weren't that good. They still were bodies. You don't even have bodies. Okay, you signed another offensive lineman today, did the Giants, and in addition to getting Nate Solder, you have to continue to improve the offensive line. You lost Weston Richburg. You're going to lose the other the first round pick that you drafted about 4 or 5 years ago. He's going to move on as well. So you need to revamp that offensive line. Eric Flowers is not the guy that you thought he was when you drafted him in the first round. So you got to revamp that offensive line, or nothing is going to work in New York for the Giants. Buffalo pregame says, is Trent Murphy a good signing? Is he a good signing? All right. Got a super chat. Make sure that there's no comment attached to the super chat. I got my ass chewed out yesterday for taking too long to answer a super chat. So I want to make sure that, and I appreciate that, BK Soldier. If somebody sends me a super chat, that I make sure I answer the super chat as expeditiously as I can. I don't want any more problems. So Buffalo pregame says, is Trent Murphy a good signing for the Bills? Yes. Now here's the thing. Trent Murphy's coming off of, and I think I might have misspoke earlier when I said Alex Okafor was coming off of an ACL. The kids might have actually been an Achilles. Don't quote me on that. You know, it's easy to get the two confused, but one is worse than the other. So you don't want to confuse the two. I'd much rather have a guy tear his ACL than blow out his Achilles. Achilles, it's much harder to come back from, and usually it takes the player 2 years to get back full explosiveness. So it's a big difference between ACL and Achilles. So I may have misspoke earlier, but in the case of Trent Murphy, it was an ACL. And so everyone's banking on the fact that he's going to return to 2016 form. Because remember, he didn't play in 2017. He was suspended, and he tore his ACL in preseason, so we never got to see him hit the field. But in 2016, he had a career year, like 8 sacks or so, played outstanding football, got a ton of pressures on the quarterback. And you could argue in 2016, he was the Redskins. And yes, this is a team with Ryan Kerrigan, Preston Smith. He was the best pass rusher we had in 2016. So I think he finally started to get it. Redskins fans were very disappointed with him as a second-round pick, and he started to flash in 2016 where we were really excited to see what we were going to get in 2017, and then the ACL went. And so I don't know what you're going to get, but if he looks anything like he did in 2016, you got yourself a hell of a football player. He sets a physical edge in the run game, hell of a run defender, but he's starting to figure it out. Remember, this guy had like 19 and a half sacks his final year at Stanford. Okay, he lit it up. And then when he got to the NFL, it took him a while to figure out some things. I think he might have figured it out. The question is, can he get back to what he was in 2016? If he's that guy, you got yourself a hell of a football player. One thing I can assure you he's going to do, he's going to stop the run, first and foremost. Can he get pressure on the quarterback? That's going to determine if he's worth the $21 million that I think the Bills ended up giving him on a 3-year deal. Keep moving. Actually, I did respond to the super chat yesterday. You just left before I did. You got had a hissy fit and left, I think. Anwar Muhammad says the Case Keenum contract is reportedly 2 years, $36 million. Don't know how much is guaranteed. So I can't confirm nor deny that. But if that is in fact the case, we'll go with your premise that it's 2 years, 36. That screams to me they're drafting a quarterback still at number 5. That's what that screams to me. That they're not sold 100% on Case Keenum, nor should they be. And he's a stopgap, and they're looking to go and get a quarterback in the draft. So to the question earlier that someone posed, with all the quarterbacks in free agency finding homes, will this change the draft stock of quarterbacks? No, it's not. John Perez says, any chance the Redskins get Doug Martin? No, no, no. KT Southern Gent says, with the Carlos Hyde signing, does Cleveland go after Barkley? Hell yes. Hell yes. Nothing has changed. In this league, you need 3 quality backs. They got Duke Johnson. Now they have Carlos Hyde. You go get Saquon Barkley, and you've got a hell of a backfield. But nothing has changed. What I think this has done, and I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, and what I think this has done, I was talking to a buddy of mine, because he asked me the same exact question. Because a lot of people, the initial response to the deal for Hyde was, oh, Browns out of the Saquon Barkley market. What? What? That's crazy talk. To me, all this says is we just want to cover all of our bases just in case somebody comes at us with a ridiculous deal for number 1 overall that we just can't say no to. If somebody comes at us with a ridiculous deal, I'm talking 2 1s, a 2, 2 2s, and a 4. Just something crazy, right? And you know, I just gave you one of the most preposterous deals ever. But let's just go with that premise. Somebody comes out of the woodwork like, look, we love Sam Darnold and we got to have him at 1. The Browns want to be able to say, well, it's not like we got to have a back here. We got one. So if someone wants to throw us, because remember, John Dorsey said 2 weeks ago, hey, we open for business. You want the number 1 pick? Hit me up. Hit me up. And he literally said, hit me up. So All this move for me does is it gives the Browns flexibility. It doesn't. They're not in a box to where they have to select a running back. They got options, but don't get it twisted. If nobody comes and knocks their socks off for number one, they're still taking Saquon Barkley, if you ask me. So let's keep it moving. Pepe the YouTuber says, I'm hoping the Texans get Tyrann Mathieu. We need help. We can get that in the secondary. Buffalo pregame says, fun fact, Bills have never selected a quarterback in the top 10. That may change this season. Reese says, what do you think of Jason Light's mentality on signing 2 nose tackle players in Unrein and Bo Allen on a team that needs pass rush? Look, he's looking to try to collapse the pocket. Those guys are more along the lines of 2-down players. If those guys are on the field on 3rd down, you have a problem, number one. And number two, you're hoping that they're going to collapse the pocket because they're not going to win one-on-one matchups and get to the quarterback themselves. Both of those guys are good against the run, not going to do much in the way of the passing game. Jason Field says, what can DJ Hayden do for the Jags? So essentially what they did there is they lost Aaron Colvin and they looked to kind of revamp the slot with DJ Hayden. That's all they're looking to do. Lost a corner. Let's go ahead and regain a corner. So Hayden's going to come in and hopefully be able to play the slot for him in the upcoming season. Craig Smith says, Lou, you find it odd that several of these second-tier guys are flying off the shelf with these ridiculous contracts before the Tier 1 guys like Poe, Richardson, etc. With that, you got to realize that, like a guy like Richardson, let's take him for example. Are you referencing, and I assume you're talking Sheldon Richardson, not Paul Richardson. So let's go with the defensive line. So let's look at the defensive line. Starla Tulele, gone already. Haloti Nada gone. That's really it. I'm looking at a list of guys with Sheldon Richardson, Don Terry Poe. Shamar Stephen was a guy that I thought would go a lot sooner. I haven't seen him come off the board yet. Benny Logan is still available. Daquan Jones still available. Brent Urban, I think, is still out there. Danico Autry actually got snagged up, which was a bit of a surprise this early. But again, nothing surprises me anymore because a guy like Sheldon Richardson, with the off-the-field issues, he's such a wild card. Teams are a little scared of what this guy is off the field. And so I don't know if teams were willing to take that risk on him early. Maybe if he's still sitting out there a little bit later on and the price tag comes down, maybe some teams will start to bite. With a guy like Don Terry Poe, he's a 2-down player. I think most teams see him as a 2-down player. Can he play all 3 downs? I think he can, but I think a lot of teams have pigeonholed him as a 2-down player, and I think he might have outpriced his market, and so maybe teams are like, you're not worth, because remember, last year was the same thing. He had to take a 1-year prove-it deal because I think he thought he was worth more than money than what he was going to get, and so he had to take a 1-year, $7 million deal or 9, somewhere in there from the Falcons, and I think he's doing the same thing this year. He thinks he's worth more. He's not going to get it, and he's going to have to take less, and so that's why you're seeing some of these guys have to wait. But as far as some of the other second-tier guys, it's always like this. And I had a conversation with a buddy of mine earlier because he was upset that his Raiders lost so many of their role players. T.J. Carey, I just mentioned Danico Autry. Teams are plucking away a lot of his role players, and he was like, why are people coming after my stuff? And I said, it's the same reason people are coming after our stuff. As a Redskins fan, Ryan Grant, Trent Murphy, when the market dries up at a position early on, people turn their attention, teams turn their attention to your stuff. So this is how it generally goes. If you're looking for a receiver and Samuel Watkins goes and Allen Robinson goes, and then you look up and Albert Wilson is now gone, and then all of a sudden Paul Richardson is gone, and you look up again and Jarvis Landry's already gone, and then you turn around and the receiver that went to the Bears is gone. And you're like, damn, what happened to all the receivers? You know what those teams start to do? Oh, shit. Look at Ryan Grant over there, man. He's starting to look real good. What's up, Ryan? What's good with you, man? And all of a sudden, Ryan Grant's getting a 4-year, $29 million deal. It happens. And so that's how second-tier guys get paid. Dre the Great says, can you tell me anything about Derek Carrier with his time with the Skins? Derek Carrier is a solid receiver, a solid run blocker. He's not elite at either trait. He gives you a little bit of everything, nothing great. He's a Pam Mon guy, okay? Proficient at many, master of none. So he does everything well, nothing great. And so he's really solid. Not going to scare anybody with speed. Not a great athlete, but he's good enough. All right, let's go back up and answer some more questions. See. BK Soldier says, any thoughts on Andrew Norwell? I don't know if you answered this already. No, I didn't answer this. No one really asked about Andrew Norwell. And, you know, that's how it happens with offensive linemen, especially guards. They get shitted on. But Norwell's now the highest paid guard in the league, which bodes well for a guy like Brandon Sheriff, who's going to be looking for a new deal come next season. So Andrew Norwell pretty much set the bar for any guards looking to get paid in the league. Last year, it was the guard that the Browns signed that got the $60 million deal from Cincinnati. Now it's Andrew Norwell upping the bar a little bit more, and Brandon Sheriff is going to probably exceed what was set. But Norwell is a hell of a football player, especially in the run game. He moves guys in the run game. He's a big physical guard. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. Undrafted football player that plays like a guy that is playing for his life, his NFL career, every single snap. You love that about Norwell. He's good enough in the pass game that it doesn't affect what you think about him as a football player. Is he as dominant in the passing game as he is in the run game? No. But is he good enough? Is he adequate enough as a pass protector? You betcha he'll get the job done. And because of that, he's the highest paid guard in the league and well deserved. See. BA says, I agree. What do you think about Chubbs from UGA? I wasn't high on Nick Chubb at first, but after seeing how fast he ran at the combine, it changes my mind. I think he has the ability to maybe be a Mark Ingram. And if he can be a Mark Ingram in this league, I'd take him. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more of a Sony Michel, Kerryon Johnson type. But I wouldn't have a problem with Nick Chubb if that's who he is. If 4'5", 240 is what he is, I don't have a problem with Nick Chubb. Anwar Muhammad says, best landing spots for Jordy Nelson. We talked about this yesterday, but to reiterate, Oakland is a landing destination potentially. New England is a landing destination potentially. You've got the 49ers. You've got the Seahawks. All of these teams. Seahawks lost Paul Richardson, lost Jimmy Graham. They could use a big target out there. So all of those are destinations that Jordy Nelson would be more than welcomed at, and there are a ton more. So we'll see what he decides to do. Carolina, also another spot that Baltimore would also be another spot for Jordy Nelson. Again, there are a ton of teams that could use a guy like Jordy Nelson and what he brings to the table. Brian R. says, with the Lions getting rid of Eric Ebron in free agency tight ends, are there any free agency tight ends that would be a good replacement? Let's look at the tight end position in free agency. I don't think there was much to begin with there. So Jimmy Graham gone. Tyler Eifert is intriguing. I don't have to tell you about just how talented Tyler Eifert is, but we all also know that there is an injury history with Tyler Eifert that I think is the reason he's even still available right now. So that is a guy that could definitely replace Eric Ebron and actually do a better job than Ebron if healthy. But that's the big question. Is he going to be healthy? Trey Burton, gone. Luke Wilson, still available. Virgil Green, Richard Rodgers, Anthony Fasano, Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Ben Watson, all available. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, also a very intriguing tight end. Again, hasn't met his full potential. I thought he did some nice things with the Jets last year, but I still think he's a guy that is still finding his footing in this league, but he's very talented, and he started to do some good things last season. The list of tight ends that could potentially come available: Dwayne Allen, Brent Selleck. Selleck's already been released. Mercedes Lewis, Eric Ebron already been released. Julius Thomas and Vance McDonald are all tight ends that could potentially find their way to free agency. Let's continue on down the list. Matthew Lynch says, what is the number one priority for the Skins in free agency right now? It's probably to get a defensive lineman or a corner. To me, one of those two. If you can get Tyrann Mathieu and have him fill a number of voids, you do that. Safety corner, because he can play the slot. Also come down as a nickel defender. All of those things, he would fit and check that box. But if you're the Redskins, I think if you can get a defensive lineman like Poe or even Sheldon Richardson, if you are satisfied with Sheldon Richardson off the field and in the locker room, then that's a guy that you could also explore options with there. But to me, defensive line is the biggest need for the Redskins. And then, to me, cornerback it would be the next one. This is assuming that you sign back Zach Brown. If you don't re-sign Zach Brown, then you've got a gaping hole at inside linebacker. So that's something else to keep an eye on. Jeff P. says, do you think the Giants take Quentin Nelson at 2? It's a possibility. He's the best. I'm hearing, and I know him because I'm a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan. The guy is outstanding. I'm hearing people say that he's the best lineman they've seen in over a decade, and he's a guard. Keep in mind, we don't generally in this league, guards don't go top 5. But Brandon Sheriff went early, and you saw the impact he's had on the Redskins, and the Cowboys took a guard out of a similar school, similar body type, similar production out of Notre Dame. He's even better than the guard that they took. The Cowboys took early in the first round. So Quentin Nelson is a definite possibility, especially if the Giants decide to bypass quarterback, which I think it would be a mistake at this point. But if they bypass quarterback and Barkley's gone, Quentin Nelson is definitely the pick at number 2. If Barkley is gone and quarterback is something that they want to do, you need to go quarterback. But I think if Barkley's available, they might go Barkley over Nelson. But Nelson, to me, should be the second option for the Giants after Barkley, which I think he's going to be gone, and after the quarterback position. So, because one or the other is going to be gone at number 1. If you like one of the quarterbacks and he's still there, then he'll be the third option, Will Nelson. If Barkley is still on the board and a quarterback that you like is still on the board, then I think Nelson is the third option. So he's definitely in the mix for the Giants at 2, for sure. Ray's Phoenix says, now that Tyrann Mathieu is gone to Arizona and Bradford is in, what path will they go? What path should they go? I'm a Cardinals fan. I think that the Cardinals are going to need to address the wide receiver position, whether they do it in free agency or the draft. There's not a lot out there. You lose John Brown, Jerron Brown, so both Browns are free agents. Larry Fitzgerald is maybe in the last year of his career. I talked yesterday about some of the young receivers, J.J. Nelson, also the receiver you drafted last year out of Grambling in Williams. But I still think that receiver is something that the Cardinals need to take a long, hard look at. Also, I think they could use some defensive line help, interior defensive line help. Robert Kimdiche hasn't panned out thus far in Arizona. Obviously, you lost Calais Campbell last year, and you know, looking at the team and the way that they're set up, they could definitely use a defensive lineman. Kareem Martin, who is a linebacker / defensive end. He's now gone to the New York Giants. So I think that you're kind of depleted up front if you're the Arizona Cardinals. So I think offensive line is a problem for the Cardinals that they need to address. Defensive line is something that I think they need to take a hard, long look at. And then I think they also could use a wide receiver out there as well. Rod, Rodney Ray says the Skins already had Albert Hainsworth. We don't need a suit. I agree. I'll be good with first Zach Brown, DMC, and Matthew. That's it. Then it's draft time. So I want Zach Brown back just like you do. DMC is cool, but if we don't get him, I wouldn't be hurt. Matthew would be nice. I'd love to see the Redskins take a shot at him, take a run at him. And with a guy like DJ Swearinger basically being the biggest facilitator for that and the biggest cheerleader, we got a shot. But I don't know if I don't know if the Redskins are in that market or not. Stephen M says, any idea who the Vikings might pick up at 30? I'll tell you this much. If the Vikings have an opportunity to get their hands on a quality running back at 30, they may do it because I heard rumors today of them, and I talked about this at the running back position. I talked about Latavius Murray potentially being on my podcast as well, Louie T Network podcast. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. New episode should be coming very shortly. But I talked about Latavius Murray potentially being a cap casualty, and if he doesn't restructure his deal, he could get cut. And I saw the report today that if he doesn't restructure his deal, he could get cut. Well, Jarrett McKinnon signed with the 49ers today, a deal in a situation for him that I absolutely love. He's going to flourish under Kyle Shanahan. But no Jarrett McKinnon. If you cut ties with Latavius Murray, all you're really left with at the running back position is Dalvin Cook, who is coming off of an ACL tear. So the running back position would be pretty high on the list of needs for the Minnesota Vikings if they were not able to get something done there. And they also got a backup quarterback today trading for Trevor Siemian, but I don't necessarily love that either. So if I'm the Vikings, you're not going to draft a quarterback. You just spend all that money on Kirk Cousins. But in any event, I think running back would be ideal for the Minnesota Vikings. And you can never have too many defensive linemen. Ends, D tackles, you can never have too many. You're going to lose Shamar Stephen most likely on that defensive line. Why not take a flyer on somebody? Linval Joseph's getting up there in age. If you can find a guy to get your hands on the defensive line, get you some value there, that's another guy position to take a look at the end of the first round. Let's go to, and I'm gonna check Bleacher Report real quick to see if anything has happened. Just to check and see if any new news has taken place. KT the Southern Gent says, better fit for the Saints, ASJ, Ebron, or Dallas Goddard, or Goddard. I always like to go younger, cheaper, and Dallas Goddard would be exactly that. He's a big pass-catching tight end, something the Saints haven't had since, obviously, Jimmy Graham. Will you be able to get him is a question. If you don't select him in the first round, he may not be around the second time you come around to select him. I think he might be gone by the time you come around in the second round. So the question then becomes, do you want to just attack the position beforehand? I would say out of the guys you asked about, Ebron would make the most sense as a pass catcher. I think he does a lot of good things and would really serve the Saints well in the passing game. Patrick Covington Jr. says, which player are you excited to analyze when you do the draft prospects one-on-one series? I mean, I'm excited to look at a lot of these prospects. I go in with an open mind. If you go into watching film on guys and you're looking for stuff, you'll find it. if you're looking for bad things, if you don't like a player, if you don't want to like them, you'll find things to not like them. You got to go in with an open mind, and that's all I do. And some tapes are better and funner and more exciting to watch than others. I enjoy watching certain players, and I always tell you guys, man, this was so much fun to watch. It's so enjoyable when you find a guy that is just dynamic, explosive, plays the game the right way, and is making plays. It just makes the tape that much more fun to watch and enjoyable. So I don't have any one player in particular. There are certain guys that, okay, I'm dying to watch them, you know, on tape a little bit more so than everybody else, just to see if they live up to some of the hype or maybe some of the expectations in my head from maybe seeing them at the combine. There are players like that, like a DJ Moore, which I've seen a little bit of, but I want to see more. After seeing him at the combine, I was so impressed. He's a guy that I've got high standards set for, and I think he may be ultimately the best receiver in this draft class when it's all said and done. So we'll see, but nonetheless. John Perez says, where do former Chiefs linebackers Tamba Hali and Derek Johnson end up? Tamba Hali's done. He's washed up. There's no more good football left in Tamba Hali. There's nothing there. That rag is completely dry. Nothing you can squeeze out of it. Derek Johnson, he's been a good football player for a very long time. Same thing can be said for him. If someone wants to take a flyer on Derek Johnson, knock yourself out. But there's not much there with those football players anymore. Stephen M. says, so you thinking Geis or Harrison Phillips? I'd much rather get Geis. But Harrison Phillips is a guy that I think could be at the back end of the first round, that could actually sneak into the first round as a defensive lineman. So we'll see. KT the Southern Gent says, no disrespect, but I hope the Redskins don't draft DJ Moore. I want him in New Orleans. I'm just saying, LOL. No doubt about it. Let's see. I haven't seen all the Lethal Weapon movies, Ree. I think I stopped at like 2 or 3. I know I've seen the first 2 for sure. Anyway. All right. So that's basically all the comments there. I want to touch on a few things. Let me check the rumor mill real quick. So the Saints signed Tom Savage, Nacho Man Tommy Savage, to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. So Saints get themselves another quarterback in the mix in New Orleans. 1 year, $1.5 million for Tom Savage, the ex-Houston Texans quarterback. Let's see. LeGarrette Blount to visit the Detroit Lions. So like I said, the Lions are parading through every single 30-plus back in the league, and they are definitely hell-bent on signing themselves a veteran running back. See, anything else that I wanted to talk about? Eagles may be shopping Kendricks, and I tell you what, he's a very athletic linebacker. If someone's looking for a linebacker, Michael Kendricks in Philadelphia. Don't know what the Eagles would be asking for, but after they re-signed Nigel Bradham, it sounds like Michael Kendricks is on the market and available for a team looking for some linebacker help. So we talked about Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and it says the Seahawks, Jets, Saints among suitors for his services. So I know a couple of Saints fans were asking about ASJ, and he may be someone that the Saints are definitely interested in potentially signing. Patrick Covington asked me about the Toledo quarterback, Logan Woodside. I thought he was at the combine, how he performed. I thought he was solid. He didn't blow me away. Obviously, it was hard for him to. He did some good things. Now, there were some good throws that he made, but it was hard for him to shine with all of the arms that were out there. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he threw with Baker Mayfield and Rosen and those guys. So, in any event, he was solid. I still like him. I like him a lot. KT, the Southern Gent, says, Tom Savage, what the hell? I'm breaking out the 20 grand. Depressing. You drink that too, man? That's some good stuff, man. I got some in the cabinet right now, but I don't drink during the weekdays unless it's wine. But rarely do I even drink wine during the week. I usually reserve my drinks for the weekend. But boys, that's some good stuff. You haven't had 20 grand, man, treat yourself to some smooth stuff. Goes down nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. Jeff P says, you think the Skins will find O-line help within the next couple weeks, a starter? I don't know. If there's one guy that I like on the market still at the guard position, and that's Zach Fulton out of Kansas City. He's the only guy left. Jack Mewhort is available, but he's got injury history. He's got injury concerns. Zach Fulton is solid. He's not going to knock your socks off, but I know I can count on him. He's dependable. He's going to play every week, and he's versatile. So I like Zach Fulton. If the Redskins were going to try to go out and get someone in free agency at the guard position, Zach Fulton would be the guy. But my thing is, if you're going to address it via free agency, why not just re-sign your own? Why not get Spencer Long back? Again, Spencer Long has to want to come back, and Spencer Long has to want to play guard, because I think the Redskins want to start Chase Rouillet at center. And if Spencer Long doesn't want to play guard, then okay, let him walk. But if he is willing to play guard, give him what he needs. He's our stuff. He's homegrown product. Bring him back and let's move forward. Stephen Hill says, I have Laletta, Woodside, and Falk as the QBs that people don't look at enough. Falk has a ton of tape from just a few years ago. I was in love with Luke Falk 2 years ago. Absolutely loved his game. He had a game up in Eugene against Oregon that was just phenomenal. When Oregon was still good, just phenomenal. And I think he's actually trended downward since then, though. I can't really explain it. Hasn't played his best football. Has dealt with some injuries as well. I still think he's talented, though. Woodside, I like him. He's a competitor. He's gritty. It doesn't have the typical NFL size you're looking for at the quarterback position, but I think he can play. He's gritty, does all the things you need. Nothing great, but everything is solid in terms of his skill set. Laletta is a guy that I think is developmental. You put him on the right team in the right system, and I think he could develop into an NFL starter down the road. So I like all of those quarterbacks, and I think they've got a future in the NFL. Some as starters, others as career backups. Nonetheless, Kyle Sean says, what do you think about the Miami Dolphins moves? So the Dolphins yesterday acquired two receivers, both kind of in that slot mold, in Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson. I think they were looking for shiftier guys because they got big receivers that can play on the outsides, Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker, and then you still have Leonte Carew. So I think they felt like they were set on the outside. They needed smaller guys that could win immediately, and so they went out and got two guys that can do that, add a little bit of more quickness to their offense, and so they did that. And then today, let's see if they did. I know they did something else today too, outside of releasing Ndamukong Suh. I think that might have been the last thing that they did, at least that I've seen. So those were solid moves. Again, I feel like the Dolphins are rebuilding, and maybe they aren't, but that's what it feels like. Anwar Muhammad says, what do you think about Cortland Sutton after the combine? I'm not high on Cortland Sutton. Limited route running ability, doesn't have a ton of speed, not really going to separate at the next level. He's going to have to win with his size. That's going to be the way he's going to have to separate. I've got questions. I need him to answer those questions. So we'll see. I have to look into that. What's in an Arnold Palmer? Isn't that lemonade and iced tea? Hit me up on that, because I don't drink soda. So if it's soda in an Arnold Palmer, I can't drink it. But I think Arnold Palmer has lemonade and iced tea in it, right? BA says Spencer Long signed with the Jets. The Jets are killing it. And I love Spencer Long, and he's going to fit well with the Jets. Upgrade their offensive line. They were getting old with the Brickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold and all those guys that were getting up there in age that, you know, over the last couple of years they've been either seeing retire or they've been pushing out. So he's going to give them an infusion of youth on their offensive line, and he's a really good football player, man. Ricky Hot Rock says, Quentin Nelson or Tremaine Edmonds to Chicago. Nelson won't be there for the Bears to take. I don't think. What pick do the Bears have? Bears have to be what, 6th in the draft, I think. Let's see. First are the Browns. Second are the Giants. Third are the Colts. Fourth are the Browns again. Fifth are the Broncos. So I'm thinking the Bears are in that 6th neighborhood. He may be there. I wouldn't hold my breath, but if I had to pick between the two, I would probably take the defensive player Tremaine Edmonds. I'd love Nelson to bolster the offensive line because you run it so well in Chicago already, but you need defensive help. I think the biggest improvements the Bears can make now that they've really been aggressive on the offensive side of the football is now you need to start addressing the defensive side of football. There's not enough talent in the front 7. I think that they need pass rush help. And I think that he can not only offer you some ability to go sideline to sideline as a linebacker, I think he can also rush the passer. I think that's one of the things that makes Tremaine Edmonds so intriguing. So I would go with Tremaine Edmonds myself, but we'll see. Mr. DCB 215 says, we lost Cousins, Long, Breland, Grant, Murphy, Fuller. Which hurts the most? Obviously, Cousins would be at the top of the list, but we may be able to negate that with Alex Smith coming in. The one that, to me, stings is Kendall Fuller. It stings now. It's going to sting when the season starts. Even if someone replaces him well, I'm just thinking of long-term what this guy could have been. So Fuller, for me, is the one that stings the most. Archangel says, do you see the Falcons scooping up any other nice free agents? I don't see the Falcons being all that aggressive. They're looking to keep all of their stuff. And so I don't know if they're going to do anything else. They may wait till the second wave of free agents are available and a lot cheaper. But I don't know if I see the Falcons being too aggressive. See. Anwar Muhammad, okay, KT, the Southern Gent says, yes, tea and lemonade, your thoughts on the Breeze contract. I thought it was very gracious of Drew Brees to take a discount because he could have gotten more elsewhere. Let's be honest with ourselves. 2 years, $50 million. If Kirk Cousins is getting $28 a year, he could have gotten $30 from somebody. Hell, Sam Bradford got a 1-year, $20 million deal. You telling me Breeze couldn't have got 2 years, $60 million from somebody? I think he could have. If he was seriously considering leaving New Orleans, he could have gotten more money from somebody else. But he didn't want to leave, and he didn't need to leave. That's his home. He's got the key to the city. he didn't need to go anywhere else, and so I think it's a good deal for both parties involved. As long as Breeze is happy, then I'm cool with the deal. Anwar Muhammad says, do you think Calvin Ridley's stock has trended downward after his combine performance? Some people thought he was fine at the combine. I didn't. I didn't think he was that great. I thought he was moving too fast. He didn't look fluid, which at Alabama he looked fluid. So I just think he put a lot of pressure on himself to come out and perform, and he was moving faster than his brain was moving faster than his body. He was tripping all over the place. I didn't think he was that great, but I don't think that's going to affect his stock. People know what they see on tape. He's talented, and I still think he's going to be the first receiver taken when it's all said and done. Thank you, Kyle Sean. Oh, you must be buying the Arnold Palmers that come in the Arizona cans. I generally stay away from all those types of drinks, but in any event, yeah, I got to try that, man. I drink my 20 grand with Simply apple juice. If you've ever had Simply products, Simply apple with 20 grand, oh my goodness, goes down so smooth, nice and smooth. Jeff P says, how far do you think Billy Price will fall in the draft? I don't know if we have a third. I know we don't have a third. Think he gets to the fourth? Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. He's one of the best players at his position in the draft. Highly unlikely. Chris Davis says, how do you feel about the resigning of Brian Quick? I actually liked Brian Quick last year, man. I'd love to bring him back and see what he's able and capable of doing. I thought he did some good things. We all remember the Seahawks game. Got his block knocked off, but made arguably the biggest catch of the game. Obviously, the biggest catch of the game was the Josh Doxson diving grab down to the one, but Quick's catch over the shoulder, taking a vicious shot from the safety. Hell of a catch. And I like Ryan Quick, and I think he can help. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. Adrian Nelson says, if Nelson falls to us, let's not play the game if guys fall. Nelson's not falling all the way to 13. I know we didn't think Jonathan Allen was going to fall to 17 last year. Totally different story. There's no injury concerns here. We're talking, and Jonathan Allen, a lot of people question whether he was elite or if he just benefited from the rest of the talent at Alabama. There's no doubt that Nelson is one of the best offensive linemen, not only in this draft, but in the last decade. There's no way he's falling to 13, so let's not play that game. But, of course, the Redskins would be foolish not to take him if he fell to us, but he's not going to. So I'm not going to even entertain that. Jonathan Lynch says, why are the Redskins letting a lot of players walk away and doing nothing to resign some of them? It's funny because a lot of Redskins fans, they didn't want Ryan Grant back. They didn't want Trent Murphy back. Now that they're seeing all these guys walk away, now all of a sudden, oh my God, what's happening to all our players? Let's not act like a lot of our fans wanted these guys back. You're going to miss some of these guys when they're gone too, because I don't think we really respected what these guys brought to the table, some of them. Bashard Breeland is one that we're going to miss. Spencer Long is another that we're going to miss. I think we're going to miss Ryan Grant, believe it or not. Okay? In any event, we're going to be just fine. Okay? The only guy that I think we're going to miss, truly miss, is Kendall Fuller. He was so good last year in the slot. That can't be understated. Archangel says, where do you see Sheldon Richardson landing and the Honey Badger? Hard to say with Sheldon Richardson. There are definitely teams that are interested, but again, you've got to do the off-the-field vetting with him to find out where he is mentally and what his asking price is. As far as the Honey Badger is concerned, again, I can't say. There are a number of teams that are going to be interested, but again, what's the best fit? What is he looking for? Is he looking for another payday? Is he looking for the best fit schematically? Is he looking to win? What are the factors that are going to determine where he ultimately lands? We'll see. Craig Smith says, did you see Chargers players on social media were recruiting Matthew? I know Trey Boston was somewhere super salty. I didn't see it, but I could believe it, man. Everyone wants an upgrade, man. Always want an upgrade. KT the Southern Gent says, my homegirl drinks 20 grand with lemonade, actually puts it in a mimosa for a brunch date. Wow, that's different. Anwar Muhammad says, DJ Moore to the Ravens would make up for us not taking Stephon Diggs in 2015. A lot of people are salty about not taking Stephon Diggs. Me as a Redskin fan, one of them. I like Jamison Crowder, but I love Stephon Diggs. Wanted him then. I still would take him now, but in any event, nonetheless, this is the last one and we're out of here. Cruising 26 says, do you think Eric Reed kneeling last year is the reason no one is talking about him? I think that's got a lot to do with it, because if you're talking from strictly from a talent perspective, come on, he's one of the best safeties in the league when healthy. When not, to me, the concussions would scare me more than him kneeling. But he already came out and said he's not going to kneel this year. But again, some teams are scared off by some of these guys and their approach to some of these social issues, and he's been very vocal. He was one of the first guys with Colin Kaepernick that was very outspoken and vocal and really allowed his feelings to be expressed. So I think there is a little bit of teams saying to themselves, we don't want that. But at the end of the day, he's too talented. He's not, I repeat, he's not Ray Rice. He's not Colin Kaepernick. He's too talented to not end up on an NFL roster, and he will. And I look at it this way. For as much as I feel like he should already be a hot name and maybe even signed already, look at the safety market in general. It hasn't really been touched. So I don't know if it's an indictment on him as much as it is the safety position. Let's run through the safeties and then we'll get out of here. Eric Reed, still available. LaMarcus Joyner, obviously got franchise tagged. Morgan Burnett, Kenny Vaccaro, still available. Tavon Wilson went back to the Detroit Lions. Corey Graham is still available. TJ Ward is still available. Trey Boston is still available. And Bradley McDougald is still available. Not a great group, obviously. So you would think that teams would be pouncing on the top tier of that group. None of these guys have really been touched. Reed is still available. Burnett, Vaccaro, all of those guys. Trey Boston, if you want to throw him into the mix. Antoine Bethea, Quentin Demps, Mike Mitchell, Denoris Searcy are all the guys that could be cap casualties. I think Mike Mitchell has already been released. But in any event, this isn't an impressive group after you get past the first 4 or 5 names. And they haven't really been touched. So I just think it's the position in general. Teams are focusing elsewhere. Eventually, I think they're going to come around to Eric Reed, Morgan Burnett, Kenny Vaccaro, and those guys before it's all said and done. So that's it. We are getting out of here. It's been a good episode. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content in 2017 and beyond. We're changing the game over here, or 2018, I should say. We're changing the game over here, period. Don't you forget that. And if you are shopping on Amazon, use one of the links on the site, louietnetwork.net, or down below in the description to make your purchase to help your man Louie T out. Also, if you want to get into my March Madness bracket, the link is in the description, or you can hit the link on the louietnetwork.net channel or page, excuse me, on the merch and more page of the louietnetwork.net site. In any event, I'm looking forward to you guys joining up and doing battle in the March Madness bracket, and we'll talk more free agency. Tomorrow we'll be live talking wide receivers in the 2018 NFL Draft, so tune in for that. Or will we? I don't know. I might have to bail on y'all on that because the tournament starts tomorrow, and I'm all about the tournament. So we'll see. I'll keep you abreast on that. But in any event, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. I'll see you guys. No, check out the podcast though. New episode should be uploaded shortly, so stay tuned for the newest installment of the Louie T Network podcast, and keep checking out the site. We're making some adjustments to the site In the future, if a move happens and you want to know my opinion, most likely it'll be on my site on a page that I'm going to call the 2-minute drill, where I'll give you my thoughts on some of the biggest moves in the NFL in a 2-minute span on the site. So check that out. In any event, I'm signing off. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me again. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. Have a good one.